Hello everybody and welcome to Silverstone in the latest round of the Tanso Racing Group's GR86 UK Cup. Here on the JP YouTube channel once again. We're just 2 rounds away now and indeed 4 races away from the end of our season. Scott McFall still the runaway leader in our championship with 97 points over the rest of the field. It's myself, Ewan, and Bradley Dalton with you again for this round of the championship. Round 6, and we were just saying before we came to air, Brad, this is a really nice layout of Silverstone. As I'm sure you will have noticed at home, that's not the usual layout, track map of Silverstone, because we're not using the full layout. It would take us about 3 years to get round. So we're going round just the national layout instead, using the old pit lane and effectively cutting out Maggots and Beckett's, coming straight out onto the Wellington Straight and then into Brooklands and Luffield and all over again. It's a very good layout for this kind of car. Yeah, I certainly hope so, because I think the racing's going to be very, very good round here indeed. It's not going to take us very long to do qualifying, I think it's fair to say. However, we have changed the format as of last week at Knock Hill, where we have 15 minutes and as many laps as you like. That normally means that by the end of the 15, to be fair, everybody has sort of reached their limit, but maybe that'll be different here because you can slipstream a lot more around this circuit than you can at Knockhill. And look at the games that are already played. That's Scott McFall on his opening lap, going very wide through Luffield, trying to get the best run possible onto the front straight. The games have already begun. Although, to put that into perspective, by the way, that is probably only about 3.5 hours around here. I'm not saying that's not a lot of time, because that certainly is, especially around a circuit that, if I'm honest, is not that interesting to drive on your own. I don't find it very interesting on my own anyway. But it is a very short circuit, so you can rack up that amount of laps. I can absolutely believe that. It is very close at the top of the standings. Arthur Firtle and Scott McFall have now got their act together a bit more. They're both in the 104.5s, but McFall is only 8 thousandths behind Firtle, and this is a bit more of a challenge to Scott McFall than what we've really seen so far this season. Absolutely. This is the penultimate round of the season, of course. We'll be live again, same time, same place next week with the finale at Thruxton. That calendar seemingly having changed from the start of the season where it was going to be at Cadwell Park, but glad to know that Thruxton, and as it's just been announced by iRacing, is coming to the service. And so we will enjoy that circuit all new next Sunday, all being well. Craig Courish, meanwhile, is the driver we're following. He is exactly the same time at the moment as Dan Forster. Although, having said that, that's what our timing screen is telling us. My timing screen is telling me it's 1,000ths difference. Well, it's near as makes no difference, really, isn't it, as they go through this qualifying session. Not many improvements this time around. Offerford, although, does get a little bit quicker, and he now gets a 10th of a second away from Scott McFall, who is now very much solidly in second place, actually, in this session, which is very interesting to see. And I think as well, this circuit could be a lot more difficult for Scott McFall to execute his normal game plan in one of these races, which is get to the front, lead from the front, eventually break the slipstream of everybody behind. At a place like Knockhill last week, that was pretty easy to do. Around here, breaking the slipstream is very, very difficult. Yeah, certainly. We'll see how they get on in that respect. There should be 20 in the field tonight, by the way. Rick Wishon is out on the circuit at the moment. He's the only driver having not set a time yet, and he's done 5 laps. So concerned as to where he's picking up his off tracks, to be honest with you. I don't know quite how he's managed that, but anyway, he is still yet to get on the board as things stand down in 20th place. Oh, my word! Someone's up and over on their roof in the background. That is not something you normally see in qualifying. But someone has gone up and over again. As Dan Forster comes in to avoid it. Was Offerford involved maybe? Bradley Lovings, they're the only other drivers down on pit lane at the moment. And everybody has either recovered or escaped back to pit lane. This is, oh dear, this is a separate crash actually at Luffield. Now that looks separate as well. Yeah. This is, by the way, through Magnus and Beckett's, which we're not even using. What a messy session this has been. There's 2 incidents on top of the one we've seen in the background there. That was something you do not expect to see in qualifying. Having said that, I did see something almost identical on Monday in qualifying. Someone going up on their roof. So anyway, maybe it's more common, but yeah, it is unusual, I would say, to see that. Bradley Loving's still down on pit lane at the moment. I don't know whether that's because he had to tow. I can't imagine the tow time is very long around this circuit, given the fact that it is a shortening of the Silverstone circuit. Officially, this circuit only having 6 corners, although, you know, the Woodcut corner's barely a corner, really, isn't it? And Maggots as well. The short left-hander before you're probably getting on the brakes just down here. is I don't know, it's not really a corner, is it? A turn 2, but anyway, it's counted as one. So there you go. It is not a complex circuit by any means. We're seeing, with 5.5 minutes to go, though, a very similar thing to what we had last week as well at Knockhill. Everybody getting to their sort of peak performance, their peak lap times pretty early in the session, and in the last few minutes, nobody's really been able to improve.
Yeah, and that is one of those two that all these drivers are going to be pretty well maxed out on pace by the end of this session. So at this point, it's really all about find what you can. And if you have a little bit more time to find, this is not a bad time to really be able to put that down here as we continue to watch drivers go around. I do want to point out a couple of drivers that have formed a team together. Peter Duke is one of our drivers that have decided to jump into the same team, and they have formed a new team together, and it is going to be Dave Collier, who is the other driver. I don't see Dave out on track today, but Dave Collier and Peter Duke have formed together for DC Motorsport. So I want to make sure that they get some recognition there, that new livery there on that GR86 of Peter Duke's as he goes around.
Yes, you are correct, by the way. Collier isn't here tonight. You're not you're not going mad. He is absent, but Peter Duke is here. They've formed DC Motorsport now, so good to have another team on the grid. We should probably make more of the teams, and maybe a team standings in the future would be good. But anyway, at the moment we've got sort of a mishmash of people with teams and people without, and no real standings for it at the moment. So there we go. Maybe something to think about in the future as we get to the end of 2024. Of course, this is Tim Walters getting down the inside of someone into. Oh, sorry, that's Tim Walters being overtaken by someone down into. I should have known the Jacques Villeneuve livery for Walters. You can see the iconic different colours on the sort of the bottom of the car there to go with the pink. Majority of the car. As over the line there has gone Kennedy. Neil Kennedy has just moved up to 5th place. I said there wasn't very many improvements in the last few moments. Well, there was one. Scott McFall has also got within a 10th of pole now, but he's still 93 thousandths away. Not many improvements, though, at the moment. Alpha Fertile certainly hasn't been improving in the last few moments, and there's been a little bit less working together, actually, in terms of slipstream than I was really expecting.
Yeah, I was expecting to see a lot of people be bumper to bumper and following each other through to get the times down and get together. But I will say that the field is a lot closer in times than I really was expecting. When we pull up the best times here on the leaderboard, I mean, we're looking at a majority of the field within a second of each other and around just over a 2-kilometer track. That's a pretty good split for 20 cars to be just around a second. So yeah, nobody's really working together, but everybody's fairly well on pace. It's going to make for an interesting first round here. First heat, if Scott McFall and Thurtle end up battling, and Peter Duke is right there as well. I think what really has me excited, though, is going to be the feature race whenever we invert the full grid. We saw the fireworks last week. We'll see what happens this week.
It's been a revolutionary addition to this series, hasn't it? It's been fantastic to watch the full reverse grid this time around in the UK Cup. In the last series, of course, that we covered towards the start of season 4 in iRacing, we only had the top 6 reversed, and it really didn't make too much of a difference in the race at all, to be honest. The full reverse grid certainly does. A very good evening to everyone watching along at home. Kirsty Brown says, "Go Neil Kennedy." And he is in 5th place at the moment. He just moved up, of course, as we mentioned. Neil Kennedy on his 11th lap of this session. You do rattle along with them very quickly indeed. And so we like Knockhill last week, we're going to get through plenty of laps here in the races as well. I do think a shorter version of Silverstone suits these cars a lot better. And maybe think a little bit about some of the previous tracks we've had in this calendar. Maybe the full Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit was a little bit long. Maybe using the entire Alton Park circuit without a cut through at some point was a little bit on the long side as well. Snetterton 300, I certainly think was a bit on the long side. That's about double the length in terms of lap time from these lap times we're seeing here. Of course, the Snetterton 200 layout I think would have been a lot better suited. Cutting out that entire infield section would have made a circuit kind of similar in feeling to this one. Some very long straights and then short sections of little technical bits as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the big key with the GR86s and the setup they have for this series is that you have to find that balance between wanting technically challenging and fun, hard tracks, but also being able to give the drivers fighting opportunities and times to run. And drivers, traditionally a shorter lap is going to be what suits this car. That 1 minute lap time, as we see Bradley Lovings here just kind of cut straight off into the pit lane. We'll drop from there, and we'll pull up a good run here and see how one Mr. Scott McFall is getting along here through Maggots. And but back to your point, I think this lap time suits the car very well. I do agree with you on that. I think the problem is that there's not a lot of tracks that really give a great feel for time here that, you can get away with doing that. So it's a give and take. I think overall it's been balanced fairly well, but, it is one of those live and learn and set up for next season as well. But we'll pull up the grid here for you, Ewan, and let's run down these results.
Arthur Fertile takes pole position by just under a tenth ahead of Scott McFall, with Peter Duke and Mark Brown on row 2. It's Neil Kennedy and Scott Brown who will share the third row ahead of Alan McCain and Tim Walters. Craig Corish and Mike Walters round out the top 10, with Lee Rylands and Dan Forster on row 6. Rick Wishon is next ahead of Bradley Lovings, with Michael Dolan and Terry Atkinson on row 8. Simon McPhee and Michael Vester on row 9. Stuart Briley and John Johnson making up the field, 1.6 seconds top to bottom. Jack Holland says, good evening, guys. I don't have the track. What do you mean you don't have Silverstone? For heaven's sake. But will be a good race to watch. Hopefully it will. He doesn't have Silverstone. What the hell is he going on?
There's some tracks that I understand people not owning, but Silverstone is one that again, it goes in that binder that I talk about of all the tracks that you need to be able to just get in any car, anytime, and put down some sort of a good lap time. Silverstone is definitely one of them. Although, then again, if you're American, I kind of get not having Silverstone if you don't like Silverstone, and if you don't run certain classes of cars, it kind of makes sense. But still, you should have Silverstone.
I'm pretty sure Jack's British as well, so even less of an excuse. Anyway, I'll stop lambasting you now. Let's get on with the racing here at Silverstone National. It's race 1 here from Silverstone in the Tanso Racing Group's GR86 UK Cup, and it is a good start from Arthur Fertile as he takes pole position here. The first non-pole for Scott McFall. He's on the front row with him and immediately slots into second ahead of Peter Duke. Then it's Mark Brown, and in 5th place Scott Brown, who moves up ahead of Neil Kennedy. Then it's Alan McCain in 7th place, and Tim Walters in 8th, although he's side by side with Craig Corish at the moment. The first side-by-side battle towards turns 2 and 3.
And as they come around here through turns 2 and 3, you're going to see Walters continue to push here with Lee Rylands to the outside. They go through, and again, this is a quick lap, so just make sure that you're keeping an eye on it. I did see someone jump the race start. I'm not sure who that was, but somebody, as soon as they saw one red light, they said, okay, it's my time to go. And I'm not for sure who that was. A dive down the inside there from, I believe, that is going to be actually McPhee, who's looking up the inside. A little bit of contact there, and Bradley Lovings doing very well to hold on and continue through.
Oh, Neil Kennedy's gone for a spin out of Luffield. It looks like he's just dropped it on the exit. Maybe there was contact, not sure. Oh, awkward, very awkward. As Terry Atkinson tried to get into the pit lane there, he very nearly smashed into Kennedy, who was re-entering just in front of the pit entry. He didn't really have anywhere else to go, to be honest. So that was all a bit of a mess, but we'll have a look at the replay in a few moments' time of that spin for Neil Kennedy. Side by side between McPhee and Forster again, as Rick Wishon closes in behind. Here comes Michael Vester as well. Dolan all coming in. This is the battle for 12th place. They've already lost the slipstream to the top 11, by the way. As up ahead, Scott Brown has gone off the road. He's in the middle of the road. Oh, he's avoided by everybody just about.
Oh, Scott Brown backwards there. I didn't expect to jump to on board with him looking at oncoming traffic. We'll go back and catch a review of how that happened here. I want to jump back up front, though, because Thurtle and McFall, these two are going to keep this going the entire time. For Peter Duke and Mark Brown, they're going to be enjoying watching this here ahead of them, because this is the battle of the Titans. Scott McFall, of course, has a very, very dominant place here in this GR86 Cup here in Tanso, but man, right now, Thurtle is really putting a challenge on him.
He's flashing the lights here, McFall. Is he just saying to Thurtle, let's get in line and work together here? I do wonder. Well, maybe not, to be honest, because they were going side by side earlier on. Now McFall gets into the back of him. I think that's his way of saying, let's get into line and help each other here. Or not. Thurtle again defending in towards turn 3. Now, what does McFall do down the Wellington straight? Does he try and go for the lead, or does he try and push Thurtle? Looks like that might be the answer. He pulls alongside under the bridge, and it looks like Scott McFall is going to have a go here in towards Brooklands. And they are not working together at all. They're certainly not for third either. Brown versus Duke. Two battles side by side into Brooklands and Luffield for the third time of asking in this race. Fertile right round the outside will do well to hang on from here. He prioritised the inside line at Brooklands for the outside at Luffield. Has it worked? Well, they're still pretty much dead level out of the corner.
Yeah, and they're going to come side by side coming up towards Cop's Corner. Do they keep it side by side? We know side by side at Cop's Corner can be questionable. And no, Scott McFall will back out behind Thurtle here and give it through Cop's Corner. Let him go through, hangs on, hangs out. And I tell you what, this top four is separated by a rate of nothing. And they are running through very well and very hard indeed. Here we go, Scott McFall looking to the inside of Maggots. And that's going to give him a little bit of a switchback here as they come back down the Wellington straight. And he's still looking for it, still looking for it. A little bit better of a run. He's right on the rear bumper. What does he do to try to get this pass done? Well, at the moment, it looks like he's not going to do anything. He's going to stick right here to the back.
For a bit. Now we'll go for it again. I don't really see the logic of all this, but it will be entertaining, I'd imagine. Round the outside through Brooklyn, it's almost like watching a replay. He's on the inside for Luffield, but this time Fertile shuts the door, and McFall can't find his way through. He knows he's in a proper race here. And that's the first time this has happened, really, in the opening race of an evening all season long. Normally, if he's not out front by a second already by this stage in the race, he's certainly in the lead. He's got a real race on this time, though.
Yeah, he does as they come through again. Laps just over a minute. They move very quick. You don't get a lot of breathing time here around this track. I do want to catch a replay really quick of those first incidents we saw. This is Neil Kennedy's incident here in the beginning. It looks like hard on the brakes, inside curb, coming through and trying to avoid the 358 there. And the 358 is, of course, going to be Scott Brown. And Neil Kennedy just running a little bit off there in the grass, holds on, and oh, there was Atkinson trying to avoid. This is Scott Brown's incident that he had that we caught him on board there. This was lap 2 that's happened to Scott Brown, and he ends up facing the wrong way. Hard on the brakes he goes, he's in, and it's just a little bit of a nudge there with the car ahead. The car ahead was wiggling, and there was a nudge, and now, again, just everyone avoiding, very, very carefully doing well. Stuart Brierley had a moment here on lap 4, and what happened with Stuart Brierley, it looks like he lost it on his own there, and then had to get back going. Looks like just doing a little bit of an Austin Powers. Bradley Lovings has had a moment here while we've been watching this. What's happened to Bradley Lovings here? Well, he's trying to go side by side with the number 67. He's on the inside, and the right-hand side of the car picks up, and, well, he loses the grip.
Yeah, spins around, and that is that for him. Here we go, between McFall and Thurtle. McFall on the outside for 2 and 3 again, but surely it's going to be single file again in a moment. No, not quite. So this is the first time McFall has got to the inside for Brooklands. Now, where does Brown go? It looks like he's going to the help of Arthur Thurtle here, which is very interesting, because I would have thought he'd try and make it 3 wide at least here, Brown, but no. McFall gets to the inside, and he does now get the lead. It's taken him 6 laps to get it, but he is now in the lead. How long is this going to last for, though? Because it is one of those circuits that just keeps delivering you great overtaking opportunities again and again.
I don't believe this is going to last very long for him, as this is going to just continue to fight back. Thurtle, we know, has pace here. They're very evenly matched, and will come around and just continue to apply the pressure as needed. They come again through Cop's Corner, just bumper to bumper they go. They're going to continue to bring it along here and go through. Back in the background, I do want to touch on a battle a little bit further back here. Dan Forrester, Michael Dolan, they've been battling it out. They're separated by a couple of tenths. Up front again, Thurtle now to the inside of Scott McFall as they go through. And I tell you what, this is a heck of a race that has come onto our hands here around Silverstone.
Certainly is, but that's exactly what we expected from this circuit. What it can deliver in towards Brooklands again. But was looking at the inside, but he's never really going to get there. You need to be properly alongside, as we saw with Scott McFall. You need to be properly up there if you're going to make any sort of move work here at that corner. Out of the field turn they go, and onto the front straight again here It is at the end of lap 7. Scott McFall under a lot of pressure, and so far, Mark Brown and Peter Duke haven't really decided to do anything. Virtual is going to go for the lead now, though, and McFall seemed to be lifting off there. That was him giving up the lead through turn 1.
Yeah, I think at that point, Scott McFall was kind of aware that that was coming, and again, side-by-side, Cop's corner, dangerous decision, and he decides to fight it. And Scott McFall has now actually dropped back behind Mark Brown and Peter Duke. What was that about? That was a very weird moment to see there. I wonder if track limits or what happened there to get Scott McFall to drop back. That's not going to be good for him to be all the way back and forth now.
The only thing I can think of is slowdown, but it doesn't look like he would have got one of those. Maybe tactical, to be honest. Maybe he didn't enjoy being at the front. I'm not entirely sure, but McFall drops to the back. He's still got 11 and a half minutes to go to try and sort this one out, but I'm really not sure why he's decided to drop all the way off here and decide to run around the back. I say it may be tactical. I got the feeling early on, to be fair, that he wanted to work together with Arthur Fertel. It just wasn't happening with Fertel, and so he's decided to drop a bit further back, and he thought, well, to hell with it. You three can battle away if you want. But I'm going to sit here and wait for the last 5 minutes or so when things will really start to matter.
Yeah, that would... Scott McFall is a driver that can be that strategic too. He could be saying, you know what? I think if those three fight, something will happen. If I sit here and keep fighting, I'm just going to wear out the tires. I'm going to wear myself out here, and it's just going to be a problem. Or he could be thinking of the reverse grid here in 15 minutes time. Of course, 10 minutes left in this race, plus the 5-minute cool-down warm-up session. He could just be thinking a little bit further ahead here and just kind of trying to gauge things from there. He thinks, you know what, if in that race I start ahead of Thurtle, I can keep Thurtle behind easier. So we go through. Mark Brown's still putting pressure on Thurtle as they go through. I do want to look here. Something's happened with Simon McPhee. This was all the way back on lap 6 that this happened, and McPhee, it looks like just getting the big punterino there around and through, and not having a good time there with the number 200 of Dan Forrester up ahead of him.
Yeah, so Forster was clipped around, and McPhee had to go off the road to avoid it. And what is going on here? McPhee is losing places again here to Bradley Lovings and also to Michael Dolan. Simon McPhee drops to 13th now. Dan Forster's scraping along the ground here. His rear bumper is not properly attached anymore. Now, this is one of the great things about the iRacing damage model these days, is that the cars actually do have damage that would look a bit more like real life, to be honest, than they used to. And you can see clear as day there that Dan Forster is not, not all his bodywork's attached, let's put it that way. He's scraping along the ground now.
Yeah, and for Dan Forrester, I'm really shocked he didn't just go ahead and peel off into the pits there, and I'm really shocked that he's putting the block on Terry Atkinson the way he is, because I really thought that would have been just kind of done and dusted through. Up ahead, McPhee getting past Dolan here, getting the move done, but for McPhee, it seems like pace isn't the issue. The consistency is starting to be a little bit more of a moment for him. It seems like every time he gets a run and he's getting ahead, he has a little bit of a moment, runs off track, and loses the positions he's tried so hard to gain. We'll see if the next 8 minutes give him a little bit of working on that to set himself up for the feature race here. So we go through. I want to jump back up here, Ewan, because Korish is going side by side with McCain.
Only briefly. Couldn't quite do it. Peter Duke was side by side with Mark Brown earlier as well in towards turn 2 and 3 just a few moments ago, but he got back into line again as well. 8.5 minutes to go. Scott McFall gets pretty close to Duke, but again decides not to make anything of it by the looks of things into Brooklands. There you go. Nothing doing in towards Brooklands on that occasion. So that is very interesting indeed that he's deciding to just stay behind at this stage and just wait a little bit longer. Because the decision for him to drop to the back is unlike anything we've seen him do all season long. Yeah,
it's a very unusual sort of move there for Scott McFall. Maybe this is just the case of what happens when you have a driver that can very hardcore challenge you on pace, and you don't get to do your traditional, take the lead, turn one, lap one, and just run away with no questions. It seems like Silverstone has been a track where really everyone is feeling pretty good, because if we go back to McCain and Cornish, these two are still sticking side by side here, and we're not really seeing anyone pull massive gaps. We're still seeing lots of battling through the field continue on, and look at this. They go side by side through, and looking around here, and they're going to go side by side all the way down the Wellington Straight, and we'll see who decides to pull it through Brooklands and Luffield.
McCain went a bit wide there, so I thought he wasn't going to have the run into Brooklands, but Corish certainly couldn't quite get alongside him. Now, towards the end of the straight, he was getting a bit more joy, but he's not really managed it at all, and so he'll go for the cutback instead. Looks around the outside through Luffield, maybe back up the inside for the exit. No, it's not going to happen there, so McCain hangs on to 5th place. Head of course, then it's Lee Rylands and Michael Walters at the back of that group, but this is the race for the win. Just under 7 minutes to go here. What does that mean? Probably 7 laps to go as well, I would have thought, but we'll see on that front. There is a long way to go if you're Arthur Fertile hanging on from this front of the group. It is really, really difficult to defend when you're at the front of 3, or the front of 4, I should say, with 3 drivers right behind you all trying to overtake you. Oh, look at that in towards turn 3. That was Mark Brown getting very close indeed to the back of the race leader.
I think Mark Brown is starting to feel to the point that he can pick up the pace and go for this pass. I think for now, Mark Brown's been just following behind, sizing things out, and thinking about, okay, there's not a lot of opportunities, but where's my best chance to get Thurtle? And I think he's decided right here through Brooklands and Luffield is his best chance. You see him trying to set it up here. He's doing something a little bit different. He's going to go for a run, and you can see Thurtle really working those brake pedals to help bring things around. Well, not brake pedals, but brake pedal, to bring the car around and rotate it, get things going. So he's still going to be looking for a good battle here if he can find it. Mark Brown really looking good. Peter Duke looking feisty as well. And Scott McFall, again, unusual Scott McFall style, is just settling back and forth and just watching.
Yeah, he is. But then again, this circuit is unusual compared to all the others we've had so far as well. So I don't know what to make of it quite. We'll wait and see. Down in towards turn 3 again. Brown gets very close to Peter Duke, but he can't quite get through. Out of the corner they go. Brown is the closest to making a move, but he hasn't got the best run. That's gone to Scott McFall, but the problem for him is that Peter Duke ahead of him has got a double slipstream, so that's going to prove to be very difficult indeed. In towards Brooklands they go, and they'll be single file. Maybe it is a little bit more difficult to overtake than I was giving this circuit credit for a little bit earlier on. Arthur Fertile's been able to hang on pretty well here, and he's pretty much led all but 1 or 2 laps, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 1 or 2 laps. You're right there. I think really the thing with overtaking is you've got to have a bit of bravery to mix in with the opportunity. So it's not just about finding the opportunity and going for it. You've got to be brave enough to make that moment and make that happen. You can't just kind of say, okay, we're coming up to a braking zone and go, because really you don't have a lot of braking zones here around the Silverstone National Circuit. You've got to just be brave and hang it side by side through Cops Corner. We go with Corish and McCain. And Corish there is going to get this pass done in the number 213 to what is now our right-hand side, inside to outside here through the right-hander on the Wellington Straight. And a little bit of a slide there from McCain.
That will do it. That will do it. Corish will go through, and Lee Rylands might have a run as well here. Alan McCain's momentum is going to be all gone here as he has a look now, and Scott McFall has a look. And we've had a message in, indeed. Shorty Sims saying maybe Scott doesn't want to fight Fertile to the end. I think that is what we're proving to be the case right now. But look at the gap all of a sudden. What has happened? Fertile is all of a sudden a second ahead as there's a mistake from Brown. Duke and McFall are all way too far back. They've got to get in line here. They've got to get 3 in a row, and they've got to work together quickly. There's only 3.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, McFall being the sensible one of the 3 there, not taking it 3 wide and settling all the way to the back there. McFall knows what's at risk, and I think that was the moment where he was just kind of like, okay, I have to finish this race to even have a chance through, so letting it go. Brown and Vester, I'm going to jump back. This is the battle for P14, but they're side by side like they're battling for the lead. Look at this.
Vester goes through on Brown, and, well, it won't last too long. I thought Scott Brown will prevail in this one because of previous form, but we'll see, and certainly where they qualified as well. Brown is, of course, a long way down from where he qualified, and that is probably playing a role in that one. But either way, just less than 3 minutes to go. Corish and McCain still going side by side. Corish is going to prevail in that one as it gets ever more feisty for 5th. Are they going to get organised in 2nd place? Duke, Brown and McFall have to get organised here. 2.5 minutes to go. There's 3 laps to go. McFall's having a look at Brown here. I wonder whether he's starting to regret the decision to drop to the back of the group here.
I don't think he is, because of course you have to finish this race. You've got to survive through and keep things going for another day. And realistically, you know, even with championships for Scott McFall at this point, this is really just a matter of formality of racing at this point. Championship wise, I don't know who can bring it to Scott McFall in the point standings. So really at this point, this may be a case of I'm enjoying the battling. I'm enjoying, you know, the hard racing. And as long as it stays clean and nobody takes me out, I don't mind to drop back a little bit here and have a bit of a battle. Up the inside, he's going to look on Brown. And no, there's Duke.
He's taken out Peter Duke. That was Scott McFall's contact that sent Duke around. He's back going again, but here they come. That's Craig Corris getting through. Alan McCain and Lee Rylands and Hero Walters and Kennedy as well. This will be a big battle for 4th. On the last 2 laps of this race, Scott McFall pits in.
Yeah, Scott McFall giving himself a self-assessed penalty there. I'm very sure of that. And Scott McFall dropping out of this session, it looks like, all the way back. Maybe a little bit of frustration, maybe a little bit of a self-assessed penalty there to kind of say, hey, I recognize that was 1,000% my fault. I'm sorry. Hard to know. But that is Scott McFall's race 1 over here. Rylands, Duke, side by side. Here they go. And look at the gap there between Thurtle, Brown, Corrish that has just opened up. Really, your battle now is 3rd place.
Absolutely, but it won't be on for too much longer because we have got the end of the race upcoming. With Arthur Thurtle still leading the way, could become another different winner this season. Even though Scott McFall's got 6, we'll have a 5th different winner in 11 races. It's pretty good going, to be honest, the amount of winners we've had considering the dominance of Scott McFall, who, by the way, is going to start on pole for this 2nd race. So that could be a bit of a turn up for the books. But not many people would have predicted that at the start of the evening, as they now do see the white flag. What is going to happen in this battle for 3rd place? Because Arthur Thurtle is certainly more secure in 1st than Craig Corrish is in 3rd.
Yeah, and it's definitely them just going through. Craig Corrish is really going to be feeling the pressure here. This is the point where he's just got to settle in and go, because he's got some hungry GR86s behind him here as we go. And this is going to be, look at Duke and Rylands going side by side there. This is going to be McCain trying to find some sort of a peak here on Corrish down the Wellington Straight for the last time. Time is up here, and as they run down, Thurtle here is coming through Luffield and Brooklands to take the checkered flag.
Well, Arthur Thurtle is going to take a dominant win here in the end, or at least that's what the result sheet's going to say. In reality, it was a difficult race at times, with plenty of battles ongoing, but he's held them all off, and he has won his 1st race in the Tanso Racing Group's GR86 UK Cup here this season at Silverstone. For 3rd place, it looks like Craig Corrish is going to hang on. Lee Rylands and Neil Kennedy, the closest 2, but they do not change positions either. Corrish hangs on the last lap in a very impressive defensive display in those last moments, getting past Alan McCain and then hanging on as well.
And as everyone else continues to come across the line here, you see Scott McPhee here trying to look for something on Loving, not able to find it. Everybody coming through and just finishing things out. It looks like Peter Duke did have a crash there near the last lap. We'll take a look at that as everyone finishes their way through. And what happened with Peter Duke here? Well, it looks like this is actually that moment with Scott McFall. And just looking at that, he was on the brakes, and Scott McFall just a little bit faster inside than was expected, and that sent Peter Duke around. And then Scott McFall, of course, straight into the pit lane, calling it for the day.
Yeah. It does indeed appear that Scott McFall was saying there's no point really fighting, but I wonder whether it was the best idea, to be honest. But anyway, that's all to be discussed, I'm sure, afterwards. As we get into this warm-up session, we'll have a look at the race results from the opener here tonight. Arthur Thurtle wins in the end 9.7 seconds. That's because we're missing, not Peter Duke, we know he's put around already. Who finished 2nd in the end? Mark Brown. Sorry, my memory is terrible. Mark Brown finished in 15th in the end because he got a 35 second, it looks like, roundabout penalty. So that's changed things a lot. Craig Corrish then second place ahead of Alan McCain, with Peter Duke involved in that group, as well as lead riders Neil Kennedy and Mike Walters. Tim Walters finished in 8th place ahead of Bradley Lovings and Simon McPhee, who rounded out the top 10. Michael Dolan just outside of it, with Scott Brown, who dropped down quite a long way from where he qualified because of that spin he had down at turn 3. Michael Vester finishes in 13th, but of John Johnson and Mark Brown, who had that penalty, as we've said. Terry Atkinson had to pit during that race, but fought back to 16th. Rick Wishon and Stuart Briley were just behind him. They were quite close, actually. Dan Forster was 1 lap down, though, with that damage. Scott McFall 2 laps down after getting involved in that incident and parking it in pit lane. Interesting call for Scott to do that. And what it does mean, as we've said, he'll be on pole for race 2, which not many people would have predicted at the start of the evening.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure if Scott McFall did that on purpose or frustration or self-assessed penalty, what that sort of was, but it does mean that Scott McFall's starting all the way up front now. Kind of a weird double-edged sword there. He loses out on everything in the heat, but in the feature, he's going to start on pole and be able to kind of work his way through, because of course all of the drivers he was fighting with that entire time are now going to be all the way in the very back of the grid. So weird double-edged sword. We'll see how that plays out. But Scott McFall maybe just needing to find a little bit more breathing room here for race 2, if breathing room can even be afforded.
It is worth noting, though, that Mark Brown and also Scott Brown are going to be in the top 10 to start this race as well. So he's not going to be completely running away without anybody challenging him here. But, well, first of all, actually, this track and what we already know about it, the slipstream is hard to get rid of. So that's going to be a factor, first of all. But actually, Mark Brown and Scott Brown being so close behind, they're going to be decent candidates for this race win as well. They've just got to make sure they get to Scott McFall quickly enough, I suppose, to try and challenge him in this race.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big key for them, is how quickly can they work their way up front and really, really put on the challenge, because if Scott McFall can kind of stretch the legs and get away, then none of that's going to matter, but we'll see exactly how that plays out. I do think this is going to be one that, this is going to be a race that's talked about for sure after the race, so I'm wondering what may come out of it here. Michael Dolan, the only driver that's really taking advantage of a quote-unquote warm-up session to actually be on track and warm up. I know I talk about this a lot, Ewan, but traditionally, I use these in-between race sessions as cool-down sessions. I get up, I walk away, I drink water, and I don't think about touching another lap.
Yeah, I would agree. In this kind of session where we're essentially between races, me and James anyway, were having this discussion earlier today about if you had a warm-up between qualifying and the race, would you drive a bit more? I think it certainly makes sense a little bit more to drive then, because especially if you've not practiced very much, because you'll be back on the full fuel setup again, as opposed to the low fuel setup that you will have had in qualifying. And it's not like you're in between races, as you say. These guys in the last 20 minutes have had a very intense race indeed. And so it's hardly surprising, really, that not many of them want to touch the circuit for these 5 minutes, but Michael Dolan clearly does.
Yeah, Michael Dolan running pretty comfortable 105s here, so I have a feeling that either Michael Dolan just thinks there's something he's missing that he can't find while he's around other cars, or maybe there's just Michael Dolan saying, you know what, I want a couple more laps here to see if I can't capitalize on the feature race, the reverse grid setup. Hard to say without asking the driver himself, but Michael Dolan's still looking like he is just finding some time here, being comfortable, and just enjoying this track. And again, it's not a long lap, just over a minute long, minute 5. So, you know, it's one that if you do need to go out and put a quick lap in, it's simple to do.
Yeah, should mention, of course, that we are at the penultimate round of this season now, and the championship is getting closer. For second place mainly, I've got to say, Scott McFall is quite a long way ahead at the front of the championship, even though he didn't finish that race. His nearest rival, Mark Brown, was only 5 positions ahead of him in the end. Alan McCain did have a knockback at the end. Dan Forster was way down, so he's in the top 5. McCain and Duke were up there in the top 10 at least, but McFall won't have taken a huge hit in the points, and he had 97 points over the rest of the field anyway, so it's not too much of a pressing concern, although the battle for second will be interesting. Mark Brown will have been closed in on certainly by Alan McCain and Peter Duke during that last race. Let's have a look at the starting grid for this race, though. It's Scott McFall and Dan Forster on the front row, 2 race winners from this season. Together at the front, Stuart Briley and Rick Wishon will be on the second row, ahead of Terry Atkinson and Mark Brown. John Johnson will be alongside Michael Vester, with Scott Brown, another favourite for this race, 9th, and Michael Dalton, who we just saw, the only driver on the circuit, Simon McPhee and Bradley Lovings in the 6th row of the field. 13th will be Tim Walters and Mike Walters, very nice for them. Neil Kennedy and Lee Rylands on row 8 ahead, Peter Duke and Alan McCain, with Craig Corris and Alf Fertel rounding out the 20 cars in the field here tonight. A full reverse grid, of course, in the Tanso Racing Group's GR86 UK Cup, as opposed to last season where we only had the front 6. This is a full reverse. We're ready to go here at Silverstone again. 25 minutes this time, as the Silverstone National Circuit hosts the second race of the evening. Here we go again. This time with Scott McFall on the pole, would you believe it, for second place. First time that's happened this season, and it looks like he's just about going to hang on from Dan Forster in towards turn 1. It's free wide for third as Brown gets to the inside. Mark Brown, we said he needed to get up the order quickly and stay with McFall and Forster. That's exactly what he's done into turn 1.
That he has. He very quickly threw the foot down, put the pedal to the metal, and got going back here in the mid-pack as we come through Maggots and take the right-hander here on to the Wellington Straight. You can see everybody really kind of fighting their way around, trying to play nice and tidy. Lap 1 wasn't the issue, though, in the heat race. It was lap 2 as we see Thurtle here pretty far back, but still getting things going. Up front, though, Scott McFall, again, just trying to stretch the legs, trying to do something to give a little bit more breathing room here early on.
Absolutely. He's doing it pretty well as well. Brown and Dolan, meanwhile, go side by side. Scott Brown really hasn't made very much progress here. Certainly not as much as he would have liked to have achieved here. And neither of many of those down at the back. Fertel has probably done the best. He's up 4 so far, down in 16th place. Others who have moved forward that much, 3 for Neil Kennedy and 3 for Mark Brown. But other than that, not too many movers forward massively. It kind of goes to what you were saying earlier about the fact there are not many braking zones. That does make it a bit more difficult for people to make overtakes in big numbers like we see at some of the other circuits, as Scott Brown now does get through on Michael Dolan a bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen drivers that's, even we saw it last week, you know, lap 1, we saw some drivers go from the back and gain 12 places early on. Here, again, as you said, Ewan, just not really seeing that, and I think it's just the nature of this track being so flowy, but we are seeing people gain places. I think the big losers of the race are going to be Walters and John Johnston, that are down 6 and 7 places respectively. Scott Brown and Michael Vester running side by side here through Brooklands and Luffield as they go through. Kennedy and McPhee are still going side by side as well. Neil Kennedy will end up behind McPhee. So we're seeing battles happen here early on, but it's not big 5, 6, 7 car battles. We're not seeing people gain a lot of places. Even Thurtle, who had ridiculous pace in qualifying in the first race, is still struggling to move further 14th right now.
McFall is very close to breaking the slipstream here to Dan Forster, by the way, and I think as soon as that gap goes over a second, it could be waving goodbye to Scott McFall. Of course, tonight is the first time he's not won race 1 in an evening. Now he might be able to avenge that by winning race 2 here and taking his 7th win of the season in just 12 races, although the gap's not quite broken just yet. This is one long line, by the way, all 20 still involved in this leading group. Side by side is going on a little bit further back. It is between Briley and Brown. Scott Brown is starting to move up. Now that they're a little bit more single file, he can start to pick them off one by one, and Scott Brown's doing that. He's now up to 6th place.
He is, and then Thurtle in the background making a good move there into Brooklands through Luffield. Here we go, and Thurtle gets his way up into 13th place, continuing to try to find time. Scott McFall has now pulled a 1.6 seconds on Dan Forster, because Forster and Brown have decided to go side by side, and that's going to open up the door for Wishon to also start having a look here. So we're going to see Scott McFall take advantage of this battling as we go through. Dan Forster dropping to 4th place. Brown's here in 2nd, Wishon in 3rd, but it's still anyone's game here as we go. Still 21 minutes to go. Still at least 20 laps here in this race, I would say. Possibly a little bit less, depending. But we still have battles galore here. Thurtle, yet again, to the outside. Hold on to it. Runs a little wide, but no harm, no foul. It's still looking to get that pass. Trying to get up into the top 10.
Lee Rylands goes way down as he goes wide. He's back to 18th now, but look at all this movement. Bradley Lovings, that is, looking up the inside of Tim Walters here, but he can't get that done. Big battle for 7th place still ongoing here between Briley and Vester now. The top 6 getting away from the rest of the field as these two continue to fight. Michael Dolan stuck behind them, unsure as to where to go. Vesta goes right round the outside of Luffield, and Brierley fights back on the inside. This is a big stack up now in this fight for 7th place that's getting very interesting. Look at Dolan. Is he going to make it 3 wide, or is he going to push Vesta? He's forced into pushing Vesta on the outside line now as Kennedy goes to the other side. He moves to the inside of Cop's corner.
And as they come through here, around through Cop's corner, side by side they go. At number 99, the number 87, Brierley Vester, still running through. Let's just make it 3 wide real quick with Neil Kennedy and just make things fun through Maggots. And now into this right-hander onto the Wellington straight. We look, Neil Kennedy looking for some sort of a move if he can make it stick. McPhee and Dolan side by side. Let's go 3 wide one more time. I was going to say that this is so clean compared to race 1. Race 1, we saw a lot of contact, a lot of moments here, and I was going to say that this is so clean and so smooth, and now we are taking things 2 wide, 3 wide. Somebody's thinking about 4 wide in the background, and no, thankfully everybody holds on to that, but this entire mid-pack is just a complete guess of who is where, who is what, because anywhere you look, it's at least 2 wide.
This is exactly what everyone hoped for when we saw this circuit on the calendar this season. Side-by-side racing on the long straights of Silverstone National Circuit, and great 2 and 3 wide action. Look at Kennedy through the middle. Oh, goodness me. Vesta and Brierley there having to stand aside because Neil Kennedy's coming through, but look at that. Stuart Brierley round the outside of Cop's corner. He's had to go off, but he was round the outside of 3 wide there. That's unbelievable. Here comes Fertel. He's 2 wheels in the grass trying to get through on Vesta. He has to slow down. McPhee comes through on the other side. He on the other side as well comes Bradley Lovings on the outside, and Kennedy spinning. Oh no, it's all going to go wrong now. A pile up, a big pile up. Kennedy goes round Vesta as well. Dolan and Thurter were among those slowed in the incident, and unfortunately the wonderful battling for 7th place comes to an end.
Goodness me. That was going so aggressive for so long, and it started 3 wide through Cop's corner. Neil Kennedy just seeing the spot, putting the nose in the middle. Let's get the replay here of how this spin happened. They come through side by side, and Neil Kennedy just breaks traction a little bit. Unfortunately, nothing he could do there, and very good avoidance from Brierley, but right here, everyone's just checking up, nothing that could be done, and then something happens with Thurtle after the fact, and I missed out exactly what happened here, but he has a moment, and we're going to see if we can catch. Oh, goodness gracious.
It's that moment. It's that moment after an incident when they think they're safe, and then it turns out they're not, because Dolan in the end just drove straight into Thurtle. He won't be very impressed with that. Into the pit lane he comes, along with Vesta, as Richon now pushes Mark Brown. Now, this is interesting. We haven't seen these guys for a little while, but for good reason, really, because not a lot's been happening, to be honest. It's good to see, though, and interesting to see, that Wishon and Brown are working together as best as they possibly can. Now, I don't think, personally, that gap's going to come down to Scott McFall anyway, but they are trying to bring the race leader back again.
They are, and this is going to be what they need to do. They need to work kind of together, as you said. They need to be running the slipstream. They need to, basically bump draft. If you watch NASCAR and you understand the concept of bump drafting, that's to a degree what they need to be looking into doing to continue to close gaps to Scott McFall. They're going to be looking to do that as we go along, and really it wouldn't hurt them to bring Dan Forrester in the mix as well if Dan Forrester could close that gap a little bit. I want to jump back here because we're still not done with this fight. We're still not done with the midfield fight.
Well, that's fantastic to see, to be honest, even though we've taken 4 of them out of the game, maybe 5 of them, because Walters is sort of hanging on the back there. He's not quite involved anymore. However, look at this. It is still ongoing. This is exactly what I'd hoped for this evening in terms of the racing. Race 1 was a little bit under par as far as these kind of groups went. We had some 4-car groups, but this is what you expect to see. Diving down the inside there, Lovings very nearly on Brierley, who's on the inside of McCain, who makes his way through to 9th. So it's Peter Duke at the head of the group, then it's Simon McPhee, then it's Alan McCain, and the rest, Brierley, Lovings, Corris, Rylands and Walters, all involved. This is exactly what we came here to see.
Yeah, this is amazing to watch through, and I do want to hop on board here when we get a second with Lee Rylands, which is going to be right now, because Lee Rylands has the best seat in the house, and just look at the Hornet's Nest ahead. If you're Lee Rylands and you're sitting here watching this, I don't know what you think. I don't know if you're thinking, well, let me get a pass, let me go through, and as the car's ahead of me go 3 wide, let me try to breathe a little bit, because that's going to end up in a big moment between Briley Love and Scorish. Oh my goodness me.
I can't believe that didn't end up in a crash, to be honest. That was Briley going very wide, though. Lovings, Corus and Rylands all go through. And the group is going to be split into 2 by the looks of things here as Duke McPhee and McCain get away. Unless they really start fighting, then this will be split into 2. But I can't believe that didn't end up in a big crash. That was 3 wide towards turn 2. And they were bashing into each other on the straight. Somehow they didn't crash into each other. Tim Walters there went a bit too wide, but he's okay. Well, they're all still going, and thank goodness for that, but what a miracle almost it is.
Yeah, that was an amazing run through for all of them, and they're still continuing to battle. They haven't given it up yet. They are not done. This is absolutely beautiful to watch here as we see McCain is just trying to find some sort of a way to pull away from this group, and really nothing he can do can get him away because he just has a hornet's nest of cars behind. They're just ready to pounce. They are not letting him get away at all, and it's amazing. This is the battle for P8. This isn't the battle for the lead or the win. This is just P8 through it, and they're fighting like it's the final lap time after time after time. This Silverstone National Circuit suits these cars so well, and it's producing racing that's amazing. You have in your shot right now 8th or 7th place of Peter Duke all the way back to P14 of Tim Walters.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Really great to see. Just over 14 minutes to go as well here, by the way, of what should be about 23 laps, maybe 24. It's quite a long way to go here. Just yet, we're not even halfway through this race, and even despite a fairly major incident, we have still got a very big group indeed. Although single file a little bit for this lap. That's the first lap I think out of this first 10 that it really has been like this. Which has been good for us. Maybe it would just spark up again in the next few moments. It does seem like Briley and Walters are starting to struggle to stay with these guys. And to be fair, with Duke leading the line and drivers like Alan McCain and so on involved in this group, it is a small surprise that the group is still so big with so many different drivers involved in it, because those drivers at the front are very quick. And normally they'll be splitting apart a group like this, but at the moment they are not quite doing that, other than the 2 they've managed to get rid of at the back.
Yeah, indeed, but it is still fun to watch them keep this pack together and go through, and it makes me wonder what we're going to see here if the front of the pack starts to squeeze together a bit, which is still doable, is still possible, and we'll just have to kind of keep our eyes ahead and see what happens, because it's looking very, very competitive all the way through. Wishing here up front is still sticking to the back of Mark Brown. They're not gaining time to McFall. They are still losing a bit of pace here to Scott McFall as he runs through, but they're still trying to find something here. Tim Walters, Stuart Brierley swapping positions here through Luffield and Brooklands, and now they're coming through down into Cops Corners, still looking for a move there. They're losing a little bit to this pack ahead, but still they're right there in the mix as we continue along, and they'll very quickly, I'm sure, close back up that gap.
Well, we'll see. It sort of depends what happens ahead here. If they start working together a bit like they are doing at the moment, then it is going to be very difficult for anybody to catch up at the moment. As we see a good run there for Craig Courish. He would very much like to move some positions further forward. He's already up 8, of course, after finishing 2nd in the opening race of the day. But look at that. He's pushing Bradley Lovings effectively back into the group. So all of a sudden, this group has gone from all-out fighting to actually a bit of working together now.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see too, because for all of these drivers, they're going to be looking to move forward a little bit more here as we jump back to the back of the pack here. Not least, last, certainly not least as they go. Look at this. They're 2x2. Dolan, Walters, Kennedy, Johnston. They've decided that they want to get a little bit of a battle going here and keep things moving. There's battles all throughout this grid. Anywhere we want to look, it's just not going to stop. This is amazing racing, and this is what I like.
With all respect to the others, I think Neil Kennedy is the quickest of these 4 and will be moving to the front very quickly, but he's got to do the passing, which is the main thing here. He's already getting himself alongside Walters. He's going to go 3 wide again here. He certainly is. He was involved in Lots of free wide moments earlier, and there's another one. This time he prevails very easily, though. Neil Kennedy's up to 15th place, and that's exactly what you'd expect to see from him. But for a driver 6th place in the championship, this is a long way further down than what he would have expected, and 15th is not going to be a result that delights him particularly.
Indeed, it's not going to be his favorite thing to be in, but we'll see if he's able to find any more time, but 8 seconds to make up for Brierley. That's a large gap to go through with not a lot of time here. 8 seconds and 10 minutes for Neil Kennedy. He may just relish in the battle and enjoy the battle where he's at. We jump in with Peter Duke and Elaine McCain as they go through, and you can see Peter Duke really ramping that curb there through Cop's Corner, getting everything out of this GR86 UK Cup car that he can as we run through McCain there. Second place behind him, and technically actually 8th place as they go, and Peter Duke being very defensive there through through Maggots into the right-hander here to go down the Wellington Straight, and just defending everything he can. They're running through. They're still trying to breathe. That's Terry Atkinson there to the left-hand side of your screen, and they are just continuing to roll through this big pack. Up in second place here, Ewan, Mark Brown, Rick Wishon, Dan Forrester, and Scott Brown have started to form a little pack of their own for the battle for second.
Yeah, certainly have. I think Brown and Wishon's sort of strategy to catch McFall is starting to fall a bit flat here, and Forster and Brown are starting to come back again. Maybe it will be a 4-car battle for second place. Some of the podium places will be up for grabs, but it does seem that quite a lot of the passing that has been done because of the sort of reverse grid, if you like, a lot of the faster drivers coming through on the slow ones has really happened now. Most of those are sort of back to where they normally would be, maybe with the exception of some of those in that big 5-driver group for 7th place. They are catching Terry Atkinson at the moment, but other than that, it does feel like most of the reverse grid passing has happened. With 9 minutes to go, it's now about the normal placings, and this second place battle is one of those battles that is going to be a factor now for the remainder of this race, I would imagine, as is this one. Although, as I say, they might catch 6th place Terry Atkinson.
They're certainly on pace to catch Terry Atkinson. They're continuing to run through and be very, very fast. Let's look at their last lap times here across the grid as they've gone through. And of course, a 104.8 for Scott McFall, 104.8 for Dan Forrester, 104.9 for Rick Wishon, 105 flat for Brown. Brown losing a little pace. So everybody is so closely matched here. But look at McPhee, Lovings, and Corish. They've put in personal best the previous lap. This lap, it is, of course, everyone just very similar on time here. Nobody's really pulling any huge lap differences through, but they're certainly going to be looking for some sort of a move where they can find it here. Peter Duke definitely feeling the pressure now as McCain comes around and continues along and just trying to defend it, trying to do what he can here to hold on to his P7.
Out of turn number 3, it's very close indeed, side by side between Duke and McCain. It looks like it might be back on again here. The battling may be coming back to the fore again. Down the inside for Duke. Oh, it's not going to be easy though. Round the outside for Alan McCain. He really cut the nose off Duke there. And up the inside through the next corner. Alan McCain is going to be into 7th place. That's a very good overtake indeed from him there as he gets past Duke. Then it's McPhee. Then Lovings and Corey side by side as well. It looks like after about 5 minutes or so of respite, we're back on it again with this battle.
I think they all needed to breathe for just a moment there. Now they've said, okay, we've all rested enough. Someone's got to, pull the cork off the bottle and start things up again, and that's where we're at. Corushier has gotten the pass done on Bradley Lovings, gotten through. Peter Duke still feeling the pressure here with McCain, trying to get back past him here. Is going to look through and possibly try to switch back here in through the right-hander onto the Wellington Straight. Still looking, not able to make the pass happen, but does have a good run. Still look back, though. Corushier and Lovings are going to go side by side yet again. They will continue it through. And again, this mid-pack battle is just amazing to watch as they come through. Here we go. Peter Duke on the inside, deep on the brakes. You see the front end of that GR86 bow as he's trying to get that car worked around the inside that turns into the outside for left field.
Maybe they've given up on catching Terry Atkinson. I don't think it's going to happen now. 6.5 minutes remaining as they get towards the end of this lap. Craig Corish has made some good progress. Past Lovings, past McPhee. He's quietly in this group making the moves. And he's, I thought he was up to ninth, but it turned out Simon McPhee had just disappeared for a moment. Wishon and Brown, meanwhile, have certainly given up on trying to catch the leader. They're now side by side as well. As Brown has recently overtaken Forster, they will be closing in now too because of this side by side battle for second place. This will be a 4-driver group now for the last 2 spots on the podium with 6 minutes to go.
Yeah, there's so many good battles happening. I wish I had picture-in-picture ability here in iRacing. We go back through Duke and McCain yet again. We're going to go Duke McCain a row, Corish McPhee a row, and Lovings in a row as well. So the battle for second is well and alive. The battle for seventh is well and alive behind that here as Corish is going to drop a couple more places here and drop back to the back of this pack as we come through. Oh, and there's the 277 of Duke yet again spun in Brooklands.
Wow, for the second race in a row, Duke has been shoved around by someone at Brooklands, this time a little bit side to side rather than front to rear as it was earlier, but that takes Duke completely out of this. He's going to finish 12th unless something major happens up ahead here. So it's a new look to this group now. Alan McCain leading the line. Is he going to be any more difficult to overtake than Peter Duke was? And to be honest, I think that's quite difficult. I think Peter Duke was relatively difficult. It's going to be hard for McCain to hold McPhee and everyone else back.
Indeed it is here as they come through. Everyone's looking for a line. You see Corish really looking for the line here into Maggots, now down through the right-hander for the Wellington Straight, looking for something to do there for the pass. McPhee runs a little wide. Corish has a good run here. They're all going to slipstream back behind McCain, though, as we go through. We'll check back in up front here. Mark Brown, Rick Wishon continuing to battle their way through and going through. And, well, if you're wondering where Scott McFall is, well, let's check in with Scott McFall here. Coming out of the right-hander down the main straight, here we go, and he's heading towards Copse Corner. He's about to start lapping drivers. Michael Vester just ahead, just now going through Copse Corner as Scott McFall has had a relatively calm race 2 compared to race 1.
Of course, Vester has had a pit stop, which is why he's nearly about to be lapped, but even so, yeah, he is not in a brilliant place at the moment as Brown gets very close indeed to Wishon, or rather the other way around, with 4 minutes to go. I think it's 5 laps to go as well here, by the way. I think we're going to get 24 laps in this one as well, but we will see on that front. Brown will probably be hoping for the least amount of laps possible here because he would rather just hang on to this second place. I think on pure speed, based on qualifying anyway, he would be able to do it, but it's not really about pure speed anymore. It's about pure wheel-to-wheel racecraft, and that is a lot more unpredictable.
That it is, and these GR86s really make the racecraft show. They are cars that you can get very competitive in. You can be very aggressive in. I say it all the time that these are just the big brother to the MX-5, to the Miata, and they prove it time and time again, especially around this track. And it is so much fun to watch here. We go through down the main straight again. Mark Brown, Rick Wishon there, back to back we go. They'll head up towards Copse Corner and hold the same station that they're at right now. And continue along. I do want to go back and look at that Peter Duke moment here once they kind of get settled in here. And, well, I say once they get settled in, that's never going to happen. You and me both know that'll never happen because as soon as I think they're good, we jump back here and Craig Corish is going to know.
No! Simon McPhee's going to carry on. Unbelievable. He's just going to carry on after a 360. And Craig Corish is going to lose that place that he gained as he spun around with Simon McPhee. McPhee's got no front left corner, though. He can't carry on. He's in the gravel. He's out the race, surely. That's the end of Simon McPhee's day in the most dramatic of circumstances.
Goodness me, I was not expecting that. As soon as I was like, oh, there's the battle, I cut it over, and that was, oh, my word. And now we have Lee Rylands trying to look around the outside of Corish here through Brooklands and left field, trying to find something and just not able to. We go around yet again, and they go through. Rick Wishon up front, still battling Mark Brown. Little wiggle there when we catch up with Wishon.
Here it is, second place. Let's hope it's a little bit more amicable than the group behind has been at times for 7th place. It's been very entertaining, though, I've got to say. Looks like Alan McCain might well hang on now with 2 laps to go in towards turn 2 and 3. Mark Brown ahead of Rick Wishon, then Scott Brown and Dan Forster It is 4 in a row down the Wellington straight. 6 seconds behind Scott McFall. Forget about him. Stop thinking about this battle. Who's going to move first? Does Rick Wishon decide to go for it? No. Maybe he's decided to wait for the final lap. Maybe he knows that this is the best place to be. As, by the way, Lovings, Corish and Atkinson all of a sudden are absolutely side by side. McCain has gone down from 7th. It's all going on here. Atkinson all of a sudden involved in a battle he was desperately trying to avoid.
Yeah, Atkinson really did not want part of this, and now, unfortunately, he has no choice but to be a part of this as we go through. And Corish has somehow found his way all the way back up in this pack again. They're into the lead, and you can see just the difference in pace as we go around here. Still kind of watching through. I want to jump back up here because Brown and Wishin are going side by side. They went side by side through Cops. Now they're going to be side by side through Maggots. And look at Scott Brown is thinking about putting a nose in the middle, taking it 3 wide if he can. They're going to be side by side through the right-hander. Just enough room given between the two. And now we're going to go 2 by 2 down the Wellington straight.
And is Scott Brown going to be able to make it 3 wide here down the Wellington straight this time? He couldn't do it before. He's moving to the outside, maybe hoping for something into Brooklands, and Luffield can force to go anywhere as well. Not entirely sure. Here goes Brown. Can he clear him before Luffield? No, not quite. Rishon's going to have a chance. Here into... Oh, there's contact.
No!
Oh, Brown tried to squeeze him. And Wishon spins around Mark Brown. That one's going to be argued about at the end of the race. As the time ticks down, Scott McFall crosses the line. There's another lap yet. There's going to be one more. And that, I think those two thought was the final lap. Scott Brown, though, steps into the void, takes advantage. He moves to the outside into Cop's corner, but no. Rick Wishon stays in second for now.
We're getting a very lucky bonus lap here between these two. Now watch Scott Brown, Rick Wishin here as they go through. Mark Brown, who's dropped all the way back into 5th, but still has a little bit of breathing room there. Wishin and Brown side by side through the right-hander down the Wellington straight. And as they go through, they're going to take it 3 wide here. They're going to take things through. Who's going to come out ahead where? I will tell you right now, no friends are going to be found on this track today. And I do not want to be part of the debrief for this race. Oh my goodness me, this is so close.
It is in towards Brooklands. I think Wishon's got this. He's held the inside, and Dan Forster's got more of a chance of taking Scott Brown. He has done. Meanwhile, Scott McFall has did race 2, much like what he normally does in race 1. This time he's had to wait for race 2 to do it, but he takes the victory here at Silverstone National, crossing the line nearly 10 seconds ahead of Rick Wishon, who does hang on in the end. Now, who will get 6th? It looks like Craig Corish is going to hang on ahead of Bradley Lovings in the end here. And yes, he does. Great drive from Corish to get 6th place in the end. Up 13 places, the biggest mover forward on the day.
I'm going to have to do some yoga after this race, some breathing exercises. This race had my heart rate up. This was amazing, and it all started on lap 6. We were pretty until lap 6. And then, of course, this was the end of the race here near the end. This was lap 21 with McPhee having his moment with Corish and going through. And then he tried to keep the car going. But again, back on lap 6, we had this moment of 10 cars battling. That just, I mean, for Neil Kennedy, he lost a little bit of traction, slid through. And then that was just all she wrote.
That was one of the biggest and most defining incidents of the day. But there were so many of them. Plenty of action here in the Tanso Racing Group again. A thoroughly enjoyable race in the GR86 UK Cup. And now there's only 1 week to go. Next week, of course, live from Fruxton. We'll be back again, of course. It's Scott McFall who wins the race in the end. His 7th win of the season in just 12 races. Rick Wishon finishes 2nd, holding off Dan Forster and Scott Brown, with Mark Brown in that late spin dropping him to 5th. Craig Corish won the huge battle for 6th, but had Bradley Lovings, Alan McCain, Lee Rylands in the end. Peter Duke got up into the top 10 ahead of Tim Walters and Neil Kennedy, who were close at the end. Stuart Briley finished 13th ahead of Mike Walters and Michael Dolan. John Johnson 16th ahead of Offa Fertel, who won race 1. He's 17th ahead of Terry Atkinson, who dropped to 18th on the very last lap despite being involved in that battle for 6th place and running 6th for quite a long time. Michael Vester and Simon McPhee did cross the line, but they were at the back. What a fantastic race that was. Of course, I should remind everybody that there are, every week we do a random draw for some track art provided by Mark Brown for all drivers who made it to the end of both races. So while we wait for put someone to come in for an interview. We will do that now. Spin that wheel and see who takes home the tracker off Silverstone, of course, since we're at the Silverstone race. It is going to be Terry Atkinson this time around, top 10 in the race on the road. As far as those results showed, he dropped quite a long way down. But it's Terry Atkinson who has got the tracker tonight, and obviously get in contact with John for that. That, of course, for everyone who completes both races in an evening of racing here at the Tanso Racing Group GR86 UK Cup. Let's chat to Mark, who always comes for a chat with us, win or lose. And Mark, congratulations on a top 5 in race 2, but I can't imagine you're delighted about it. We'll see, though. Tell us a little bit about that incident on the penultimate lap, first of all. Yourself and Rick Wisham are going side by side, door to door. It was great racing all the way through between the both of you. You came off second best on that occasion, dropping down to 5th. How did you see the incident?
Look, it is what it is. Crew chief, I was just sort of watching the replay back there where he was beside me, or a wee bit on me, coming into the left-hander when we're coming up a bit of a straight before the last right. Crew chief had shouted clear right, and he just had a wee jump into me then at the same time as crew chief probably gave me the clear right. And look, it's a racing incident. He was not bad. Like, he was pushing hard, he was quick, like, and fair plays. We raced clean the whole way through it. So just one of the wee things. Hey, it is what it is. So I can't complain. First race, I wasn't even watching the incident points through, wasn't, and I freaking got a penalty, 17x at the end of it. So bit shit. So it dropped me way back to the grid. But yeah, it was great, good racing. Hey, Arshel done well in the first race. I had to phone a friend there. Thanks for Arthur to come over for a bit of fun there. It's a pity Scott didn't want to play with him or fight, because they're having a good race. I was stuck in behind them, but Scott just pulled over and didn't want to race. So I don't know why he went to the pits. There was no issues. There was not any problems. So I don't know if someone fights him. Does he? I wouldn't give up. I think it's a bit of a shame, like, because they could have raced and fought for the second race too, because I'm sure they would have come first and second. So it would have been good to see them. Good to see Scott with a bit of pressure, but he didn't want to play. So, well, that's the mentality, I don't know.
Yeah, in fairness to him, I think he only pitted after making contact with Peter Duke. I don't know why, even after that, but even so, yeah, it was the same. I think it was all tactical, though. I think he said in between the races that there was sort of no point fighting him off. Obviously, new to the championship, Scott McFall still not confirmed as the champion at that stage. And so decided not to, even though he does have a big lead, decided not to get involved. But how did you think the racing was going to be tonight? I personally thought race 1 was actually a little bit more single file than I was expecting. Not just in your group actually, but in all the groups really. Was race 2 a bit more like what you were expecting, or what were you expecting tonight?
I was kind of expecting to start from the back, to be honest, for the second race. But fair plays to Rick. He had great pace, and Dan was there too, and then Scott Brown was in behind. So I think there was a couple of us there was within a second of each other. So look, the draft, the toe on this track is great. Hey, it'll keep you close to anyone. And just all it takes is them wee incidents or something. When being consistent is key. So I struggled the second race, to be honest now, but. But it is what it is. First race, it was great. Like, we were me, Scott, Arthur out in front, and there was very little between us. Even Peter there. It was a shame with Peter. I see. I was watching the incident there with Peter, and I think Scott come up the inside and tapped Peter first a wee bit. I was just watching the replay and unsettled Peter, and then Peter started to spin, and then that's where I tagged him in the race. It was very, very fast, like. But racing, so it was a bit of a shame, like, because Peter was really fast here too, and it's good to see him up at the front with us too. So it's a shame he didn't do better. So I'm sure to be gutted, but I did message him there and to see if all was okay. So I don't know whatever they come up with the end of it, but it's all good. Can't complain.
Yes, yeah. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before I let you go?
Oh, just yourselves, hey. You're doing a great job, and it's all good. So bring it on to the last round. So see how we go. I don't know what way we're working now. I'd say me and Alan's pretty close now at the top end of it now, the championship. But
it's 8 points between you. You still got second, but it's 8 points between you now, which is a lot closer than it was before this race. And then Peter Duke's 40 points behind you, so I can't see that quite closing unless you're not here next week for whatever reason. So, just 8 points between yourself and Alan going into the last round. Yourselves second and third. Good to see you back out there again, though, tonight, Mark. Thanks for coming to chat to us after the race, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting next week. New track, so we should all be on a level playing field, so we'll have to get a bit of practice in, I suppose. But yeah, thank you very much, and all the best. Take care.
Thanks very much. Mark Brown, 5th place in race 2 here tonight at the Tanso Racing Group GR86 UK Cup. First place in race 1 was Arthur Firtle, who could join us now for the first time this season. Welcome, Arthur. Good to have you with us. And congratulations on race 1 victory here tonight. Just how was that for you, holding on for that win in those final minutes, even getting a bit of a gap towards the end as well?
Yeah, it was good fun. It was a great race at the start for the first few laps. I don't know if Scott had a slowdown or something like that, but I haven't raced this car for ages, and but I remember it's always a good car for close racing. It's probably the best car on iRacing in my opinion for close racing because the tow's quite strong on it, and if you've got two drivers that are closely matched on pace, you just cannot get away from each other.
Yeah, I mean, especially at a circuit like this, which I think really helped actually. And what did you think of the racing in race 2? Especially, you were involved in that huge group. Unfortunately, it turned out to be to your detriment, to be honest, that you were involved in that big group. But either way, while it lasted, how was that being involved in that?
Yeah, it was great. It was great fun. It was, it was good fun. There was cars all over the place, and it was just unfortunate that car spun, and it happened to be. I think there was a car in between me and the car that spun, but then we've all braked but it happens. We then got sent into it. It meant I could chase down Scrabbo though at the end there.
Silver linings and everything. We're just watching it now. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing you could have done about that, to be honest.
No. Once the car behind me hit me, that was it.
Everyone was going to pile in there. Unfortunately, that was pretty certain. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before I let you go?
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, my lovely wife. My lovely wife for looking after the baby tonight.
There you go. There you go.
Let me go racing.
Yeah, that's James asked me to do that every time to people, so there you go. So people can get a chance to say whatever they want to. But there you go. Arthur, thanks very much for coming to chat to us. It's been great to talk to you, and congratulations on the win tonight. Thanks very much for coming to chat to us.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks very much. Arthur Firtle there, the winner tonight in race 1. In race 2, Rick Wishart was able to finish in second place in the end, and he now joins us as well. Welcome in, Rick. Congratulations on finishing second place in race 2. Tell us a little bit about that second race, first of all.
Oh, man, that was a blast. Those guys are fast, too. I put in a lot of seat time to try to be somewhat competitive. A race with Mark was door-to-door the whole time. Scott was pulling on us, so I figured best stay right behind him. I made a couple attempts to get around him. I just didn't have the pace, so I was better off just for him and I to draft, I figured. And then the last 5, man, was just going for it, right?
Yeah, it was great racing. What did you make of this circuit and the way that the racing developed around here in GR86s? I personally think it's probably the best track we've had this season for racing. What did you make of it?
I loved it. I think it flows really good, and it's a fast track. It's real smooth corners, and as long as you can get out of the corner with some pace, you do good.
Absolutely. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Old Guy Racing League boys. They've been a lot of help on my pace and getting me a little faster. Great group of guys. And Dark Helmet Racing League. Those guys have been tremendous and done a lot of help. I'd like to say thanks to my wife for allowing me to fund their team and project and to keep going forward with it.
All right. Congratulations on finishing second, especially in race 2 tonight, Rick. And thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
All right. And thank you guys for the broadcasting. It's awesome.
Thanks very much. Rick Wish on their second place here tonight in the Tanso Racing Group GR86 UK Cup for race 2. That was a lot of fun here, Brad. Second race especially, really delivered here at the Silverstone National Circuit, but we kind of expected that, to be honest. It's a great circuit to go racing at, and it really delivered it, especially in race 2.
This race was an absolute fun time. This is one of those that I think if you were to tell me that this was ran in real life and watch this in real life, it would literally have me at the edge of my seat and have me getting my passport a lot faster to go see it in person. That was amazing. Can't, shout out Tanso enough for this UK Cup, and I can't wait to see you next week in the season finale.
Absolutely. Next week's season finale will be at Thruxton. We'll be live from around about 8:30 UK time on the 15th of December for the series finale. Scott McFall will go in with 106 points over Mark Brown, who has just 8 over Alan McCain. The battle for second is probably going to be the most interesting of the championship this season. But for myself, Ian O'Leary and Bradley Dodson, we'll see you in 1 week's time at Thruxton. It's goodbye for now.